In church. Okay. My name is Don Kim. My wife MJ and I are in the Raham House Church led by Ed Park. I greatly appreciate his hospitality and patience. I want to start with a verse, John 10:11. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Okay. I'm not a true VIP by the usual definition of New Life Fellowship, but nonetheless, I wanted to be a member. Through a lengthy vetting process, starting with an interview with Pastor Eric, and after several months of waiting, we were finally welcomed to attend New Life Fellowship, and I will explain later. The preparation to be baptized, attending the RJM class, and so forth, I still felt like I was just going through the processes until last weekend when I was baptized in front of the church congregation and then came out of the water, having been fully immersed and cleansed of my former self. You see, I was baptized by sprinkling water before. Not that it was any less, but different. It was about 22 years ago. My wife and I wanted our first daughter to be baptized, but the rule was that both parents had to be baptized. Thus, I took the baptism class, went through the processes, and my daughter and I were baptized together. But this time, it was just purely for me. During the past 20 years, plus 20 years, I grew in my faith. I got involved in church activities, especially the youth ministry. I tithed, went on short-term mission trips many times, and even served in the church leadership. But after about 15 years, I slowly started to stray from the church in my heart. I was still physically attending Sunday worship, did everything that I was supposed to do. Due to special circumstances, we started attending the Korean service, and me not understanding the language completely, I started to drift. I thought to myself that as long as I am going to church, believed in Jesus Christ, I would be okay. One day I realized that 7 years had passed since my last involvement in church. So my wife and I, my wife, she encouraged me to pray, and we decided to visit other churches. This was not an easy decision, but finally we visited New Life Fellowship, and we knew from the very first worship, this is what I needed. When we first visited, no one approached us. Finally, David Lim greeted us, but immediately gave us the rundown on how New Life Fellowship policy is. Of course, I had heard of this before, but didn't realize how true it was. We finally met with Pastor Eric, but he wanted us to get permission from our senior pastor at the former church. As things may happen, he was on a trip out of the country for a month, thus we had to wait. We still continue to attend every Sunday worship at New Life Fellowship, going through the Why We Do What We Do series. And as you can imagine, if you're a visiting Christian, it sounded harsh. We also didn't really have any context, so we sat by ourselves, noticing the empty seats around us. Unbeknownst to us, we didn't belong to a house church, so no one really sat next to us as house churches go. After church, we decided to go out to lunch. We, by coincidence, or was it God's plan, we bumped into Steve Kim at Peck's Noodle House on Long Point. It had been over 30 years since college, but somehow he recognized me. But it was much harder for me to, since he had grown a little older looking and doubled in his weight. The following Sunday, he invited us to house church, but we were still reluctant as we were waiting for Pastor Eric's approval. Finally, we were given the okay, and here we are. I tell you about this journey at New Life Fellowship because through it all, wandering for 7 years, not really belonging to a church, I was lost and distant from God. I was just going through the emotions, not having a true sense of belonging. But now it feels so good to know that He was always with me and now has blessed me again at New Life Fellowship to continue the mission. I have renewed life in him. He has again found the lost sheep. I have returned to my shepherd's house.